two officers, and but they were plainclothes officers, so this wasn't a large-scale raid. However, we still need to get to the bottom of the facts to understand exactly what did happen and why it was one fell from that great height.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. We'll have to leave it there, only for matter of time. But Nick Rainsford, Labour MP for Greenwich and Woolwich, thanks very much indeed for joining us. It's now 6:43, so let's now cross to our man, Tom Latcham, broadcaster and journalist, who's with us this morning to look at the papers. Good morning to you again, Tom.
Good morning.
Great to have you with us again. Now, the Sun and the Express quite vitriolic about the Hamza situation.
In a way, it shows the problem with newspapers. This story is kind of almost 2 days old now, but they're leading on it. Obviously gleeful in the Sun, as gleeful as you'd imagine in the Sun. See you later, Britain hater is the headline, and it reports that he may be sent to a supermax security jail in Colorado, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, which houses some of the world's most dangerous criminals. The Express, however, worries that it could take years to boot him out because when they ask why it might take years, before then answering that in their article by saying he has a lengthy right to appeal.
Now, I'm interested in the Mirror at the front page. This is Keep Your £1,000. Alan Davis, the Hillsborough family's rejecting the Star's donation after his rant. I was a reporter at the time of Hillsborough. I was there and spent many years, many happy years, living in the north of England, including Liverpool, as a journalist. And I still find it extraordinary how people, respected people, still find it acceptable to knock Liverpool about such a matter as the deaths of 96 football fans.
Indeed, I mean, Alan Davis is a famous Arsenal fan, and what he said was, well, he swore, so it can't be repeated here, but it was an odd move by him. We know how sensitive people in Liverpool are about this, and he has, after his comments, he has offered £1,000 to the families who rejected it out of hand. But apparently he's also faced death threats. But on Twitter these are quite common, aren't they? Death threats, I think.
For Deborah today. Tom Latcham, thanks very much indeed for that. We will come back to you for more from the papers. It's now 6:45. The race for the White House looks set to be a battle between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney after Republican Brixton pulled out of the race. His departure clears the way for Mitt Romney to win the Republican nomination. The other contender, Newt Gingrich, is faring badly in the polls. Rick Santorum says the fight to defeat President Obama will go on.
We made a decision over the weekend that while this presidential race for us is over for me, and we will suspend our campaign effective today, we are not done fighting.
Mr. Santorum's daughter has a rare genetic disorder. He says he decided to opt out of the presidential race after spending Easter with her, but he stopped short of endorsing Mitt Romney.
We are going to continue to go out there and fight to make sure that we defeat President Barack Obama, that we win the House back, and that we take the United States Senate, and we stand for the values that make us Americans.
Mitt Romney, who's a multi-millionaire former governor of Massachusetts, has been criticised because of his Mormon faith. He paid tribute to his former running mate.
He has waged a spirited and energetic campaign. He has brought forward issues of significance that will remain in the public discourse, and he will, without question, remain a major spokesman in our party, a leader in our party. He has earned that.
The election will be held on November the 6th. Coming up on Nick Ferrari at breakfast, the man who burned down the Reeves furniture store in Croydon will be sentenced today. And Nick will be looking at the whole issue of sentencing in British courts. It's 6:47. Let's get to the headlines now with Sam Pittis.
An influential committee of MPs says the border agency is still struggling to deport foreign criminals and isn't clear on its own data. The police watchdog to investigate after a woman fell from a block of flats in Woolwich as officers were attempting to take her back to prison. And the government is to force energy suppliers to cut bills by guaranteeing their best deals. London's weather, sunny spells, showers later, could be heavy at times, 14 Celsius the maximum temperature. This is LBC 97.3 at 6:48.
Right now, at your local Quick Fit, everyone gets 25% off all our tyres. But you don't have to invite us round for dinner. And we certainly don't have to go to the same gym and sit, crouch, or lie next to each other doing yoga. Because with Quick Fit, they're not mates rates, they're simply great rates.
Had a the LBC 97.3 Travel Centre, Andy McCall.
Susan, watching delays on the trains on Greater Anglia through Bethnal Green. 20 minutes extra on your journey. It was after engineering works finished late earlier on. The tube's looking better. Northern and District lines now back to normal again. M25 anti-clockwise approaching junction 27, the M11. The portable toilet that was blocking a couple of lanes is now being cleared. And better news on the A2 at Gravesend coming into town just after the tollgate services. The breakdown from earlier, that's also been shifted out the way. LBC 97.3 travel. Next update is in 15 minutes.
The morning news with Susan Bookbinder on LBC 97.3.
It's 6:48. Let's now cross to Margaret Doyle, our business expert. Margaret, at last, customers are going to be told by the big energy companies what is the best deal.
Yes, Susan, there's been a lot of controversy about the energy companies, the big six. Accusations that they have been anti-competitive, that they've confused customers with about 400 different tariffs, and basically that they've profiteered even with the most vulnerable customers. Scottish and Southern Energy, for example, was prosecuted last year for mis-selling to consumers. Nick Clegg is going to tell them, now you have got to explicitly tell consumers if they'd be better off on a different tariff. Good news all round, rare good news for energy customers.
But it isn't good news in Spain, and that's affecting the whole of the Eurozone again.
Yes, Spanish stocks have sunk to their lowest level in 3 years. As you know, they're suffering with an austerity budget with another 10 billion euros being taken out of that economy. And that, and combined with weak jobs data from the United States, prompting a big sell-off in stock markets around the world. We saw a sell-off the FTSE 100 at its lowest level this year. Also, the US suffering its biggest loss. And Asian stocks, which are the Asian markets, of course, are well into their trading day. They're also falling sharply on the back of that disappointing data.
Now, last week, Margaret, we heard from the OECD, the Organisation for Economic and Cooperation and Development, saying that we're going into a double-dip recession. Now they seem to be changing their minds, happily.
Yes, and people were surprised when the OECD said that, because most economists think that the UK has avoided a double-dip recession, and a recession, as we know, is 2 consecutive quarters of contraction, but they're now saying it looks that things are getting better in the UK. They have a composite index where they put all of the leading indicators together, and on that basis they think that the UK is at a turning point. However, they're again warning that the recovery will be very fragile, and that the trend rate, the rate of growth in the UK is still below its long-term trend, and that the economy now is still smaller than it was in June 2010.
So how's that reflected in the markets for us, Margaret?
Well, as we know, very poor day yesterday, big sell-off, and particularly miners. Again, miners are a real bellwether. They're a reflection on views of growth. They're very weak, as are banks. Again, banks are very sensitive to views on the economy, and fears of a Chinese hard landing really affecting both the miners and the banks. And I suspect that we will see another negative day today, having seen that sell-off through Asia overnight.
Margaret Doyle, our business expert, thanks for joining us here on the Morning News on LBC 97.3.
LBC 97.3 Business
with clubworkspace.co.uk. Touchdown, work and network with other London entrepreneurs.
6:52, and the latest indication of how shops are coping with the economic downturn is released today by the British Retail Consortium, and yes, it's good news. Stephen Robertson is director of the BRC and joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what's the latest you can tell us?
In March, we saw sales for retailers up over 3.5%. Now, March, if you remember, was wonderfully sunny, and March last year was a wretched month. So we've seen a good performance year on year. So that's most encouraging. We saw clothing, footwear, and particularly kind of outdoor gardening, leisure goods performed extremely well, and even food did well in March. So overall, a good month.
You mentioned the word sunny. Is it too early for us to take a sunny disposition on how this will manifest itself for the whole economy?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Our feeling is that the sunshine probably has pushed these numbers up slightly unreasonably, because normally March is a we're not out of the woods yet. In the first quarter of this year, we saw 15% more retail insolvencies year on year. So things are fairly tough still. And the reason for that, of course, is that our costs have gone up. We've just had an eye-watering 5.6% increase in business rates that are really hurting retailers, particularly smaller retailers. And on top of that, of course, we must forget that underpinning these sales with all the discounting and vouchers, etc., means that the actual profitability of the sales is not as good as this headline increase in sales.
Stephen Robertson, Director General of the BRC, thanks for joining us on the morning news on LBC 97.3. Now, when did you last do a bit of stargazing? Well, the latest annual star count survey, yes, there really is such a thing, showed 53% of people could only see 10 stars or fewer within the major constellation of Orion, and that's all because of pollution. So we're joined now by Dr. Robert Massey from the Royal Astronomical Society. Good morning.
Good morning.
So just how much of a factor is pollution in affecting what we can see in the sky?
Well, it's basically light pollution. It's the excess light generated for different purposes, a lot of which spills up into the night sky now. And, astronomers and many others would argue that, there's not much point lighting the sky. You've got a lighting system. What you should be doing is lighting the stuff that you want to, like whether that be roads or pavements and so on, and doing that in an environmentally sensible way. It's an issue in the sense that an awful lot of this is wasted energy as well. It's not just astronomers.
So which stars are the most obvious and easiest to see for us?
Well, the brightest one is actually, so it's a little hard to see because it's now getting a bit low, but Sirius is the very brightest star in the sky, and then you go down to a scale. I mean, and the problem with light pollution is it's not so much that you can't see the very brightest ones, but an awful lot of them, literally thousands, become invisible because they're swamped by the lights from cities, and actually also in those rural areas when you get things like London's golden or London golf driving range.
So city lighting, all those factors that you mentioned, it's not really going to be easy to drive down this pollution so that we can see these stars.
Well, I mean, there are things that can be done. I mean, of course, no one seriously suggests to switch off all the lights through the night. I mean, that's clearly crazy in a large city, but the shielding them. I mean, where I live in Lewisham in South East London, a lot of the street lights are shielded. That happens in quite a few London boroughs as well. And also, I think, that if you've got something like an advertising warning, does it really blast light up into the sky? I mean, if nothing else, it's a gross waste of energy and doesn't do much for our climate.
Dr. Robert Massey from the Royal Astronomical Society, thanks very much indeed for that. It's 6:56, so let's return now to broadcaster and journalist Tom Latcham for more from the papers. Quite a lot of the front pages have this amazing story of the wife of China's most powerful and ambitious politician has been named by police as a prime suspect in the murder of a British businessman.
Yeah, and it's going to test my ability to say their name as well.
Go on.
It's Xilai, I believe.
Xilai, I think.
Xilai, there you go. This is, of course, the wife of Mr. Bo, who was until recently a star of the Communist Party, has been arrested over the murder of Briton Neil Hayward over in China. Now, this is so incredible because this is effectively like a British cabinet minister being arrested, or the wife of a British cabinet being arrested for a murder over here, and if found guilty, she could face execution.
Terrifying thought, but let's move into the Sun now. There's a very Tom Latcham story. The jails are so cushy.
Yes, indeed. This is a part of the Sun Say No to Soft Justice campaign. A woman who was jailed for the 207th time shouted at a judge, "Cushy, easily done." Caroline Patterson was given a 30-month sentence for robbing from a pensioner and doesn't seem to mind going to prison for it.
I can feel our listeners reaching for the telephone now to call Nick about this. But before we go, Tom, here's a story that will warm the cockles of our hearts. From the Mail, alcohol makes you sharper. It's official.
Apparently so. A study has found that men who enjoy a relaxing, it says men, who enjoy a relaxing drink are actually better at solving brain teasers than those who are stone cold sober. It's thought that alcohol hinders analytical thinking, allowing creative thoughts that otherwise might be stifled to take root. which makes it easier to find imaginative solutions to problems. So I'm going to the pub.
Good for you, but what about women? Why is it only men that become sharper with alcohol? I think there should be an investigation immediately. Tom Latcham, thanks very much indeed, broadcaster and journalist. Thanks for joining us and for your insight into the papers. Very valuable as always. It's now coming up to 2 minutes to 7, so just time to tell you the most clicked page on our website, lbc.co.uk, are the pictures inside the American prison where Abu Hamza will be held. And Abu Hamza is also still trending on Twitter. That's it from me and the morning news team. We'll be back with you after Steve Allen at 6:30 tomorrow. Nick Ferrari and Breakfast is next.
This is LBC 97.3.
Hello, IT.
Hi, when it says press any key, which one is that?
Well, any key.
Okay, but where exactly?
We understand what IT are up against. With Microsoft Office 365, you get the full Office suite with the latest cloud-based versions of Exchange for email, SharePoint for document sharing, and Lync for video conferencing. So everyone will soon be clued in and working seamlessly together.
Oh, any key, as in any of them.
Microsoft Office 365. It all works together. For a free 30-day trial, visit office365.com.
At 7 o'clock on Wednesday, April the 11th, a man found guilty of setting alight the 150-year-old Reeves furniture store in Croydon into the summer riots is sentenced later today. He could get up to 12, 14 years. You'll tell me what you think is an appropriate sentence. Meanwhile, in other news, almost 4,000 foreign nationals have been freed after serving prison sentences, with the government attempting to remove them. This at the same time as it would appear will still be paying Abu Hamza's family around £600 a week in benefits even when he is deported. We'll look at that mess. Plus, get ready for yet more idea of industrial action from our teachers. This time they don't want the summer holiday term moved and perhaps extra 2 weeks work. Those stories and more all start after the news. On FM, online and digital radio, London's biggest conversation. This is LBC 97.3.
Good morning, I'm Susan Bookbinder. An influential committee of MPs is warning the border agency is still failing in its basic functions and is struggling to deport foreign criminals. It's accused of providing inconsistent information about immigration and asylum cases. The Commons Home Affairs Select Committee says the backlog will take more than 4 years to clear. Leader of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage, has told LBC 97.3 the system is a mess.
The majority of foreign criminals that are in the UK come from other European Union countries, and we do not have the ability to deport anybody who's committed a crime if they come from a European Union member state, and that really is the elephant in the room that nobody is talking about.
Scotland Yard is facing an inquiry from the police watchdog after a woman fell to her death from a block of flats in Woolwich as officers were attempting to take her back to prison. The 18-year-old fell from the 17th floor yesterday. The woman had been convicted in connection with 3 street robberies in 2009 and was out on licence after serving part of her sentence. MP for Greenwich and Woolwich, Nick Rainsford, has told LBC 97.3 he's determined to find out what happened.
I have spoken to the Borough Commander of Police in Greenwich. It wasn't actually Greenwich Police who were involved. It was police in Bromley who were involved. But I've spoken to my own Borough Commander, who I have a very close relationship with, and he shares my concern. And equally, he, I think, accepts that this matter is going to have to be considered thoroughly by the Independent Police Complaints Commission.
Energy companies have agreed to write to customers every year, offering them the best deal. The measures will be announced by the Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg, later. Customers could also save £100 a year by switching their tariff, but 70% of households pay more than they need because they aren't on the best rate. It's understood David Cameron is ready to publish details of his tax return. The Prime Minister said to be very happy for the information to be released. It follows a similar disclosure from the leading mayoral candidates following the row over taxes during LBC 97.3's mayoral debate. 4 people have been charged after police cleared a protest camp at an Olympic basketball training venue in East London. Demonstrators at Leighton Marsh are unhappy about the environmental impact of the building work on the marshland. The 3 men and a woman will appear in court charged with public order offences. shop sales rose 1.3% in March. The British Retail Consortium says the hot weather caused a surge in demand for footwear and clothing. The US presidential hopeful Rick Santorum has withdrawn from the race to be the Republican Party's candidate. It leaves Mitt Romney and Barack Obama's likely challenger in November. QPR can move 3 points clear of the Premier League relegation zone with a home win over Swansea tonight. Arsenal can move 5 points clear of Tottenham with a win at Wolves. Last night, Liverpool beat Blackburn 3-2. The FTSE will open after closing down 128 at 55.95. London's weather for you: sunny spells with showers later. Some of those could be heavy. Top temperatures similar to yesterday at 14 degrees. Currently here in Leicester Square, it's 5 degrees. LBC 97.3, it's 4 minutes past 7.
Picture a compact car. Now make it stunning. I mean, really stunning. Add some spec. No, wait, add loads of spec. The standard. And now make it affordable. Let's say £199 a month with a minimum deposit of just £199. Stop imagining. Test drive the stunning new Ibiza at your local dealer today and receive 50 free music downloads. The new Seat Ibiza, perfectly in tune. Personal lease from Seat Finance over 42 months. Conditions apply. Music downloads offer ends 13th of May.
This is Andy McCall, the LBC 97.3 travel centre. Still the problems in the trains on Greater Anglia through Bethnal Green. 20 minutes extra on your journey after engineering works finished late earlier on. To the A20, Trevor, thanks for your update coming into town. It's been a bit of a slowdown from the M25 towards Criddles Corner. Reports of a rolling closure by the police there. Now, looking at the cameras at Criddles Corner, looking absolutely fine, but of course, the problem could be way back towards the McDonald's if you're coming into town. Your updates are welcome. Still 08000 68 60 80. Usual slowdown on the M25 clockwise through junction 5 at Sevenoaks, and reports of an accident on the A21 coming north just before the M25 as well, with a lane restriction there. Same story in the M11 if you're coming in from 5 to 4, Loudon towards the north sector at Charlie Brown. Slowdown there for you. The A4 queues coming in from the Hogarth roundabout, the restrictions at the Hammersmith flyover. LBC 97.3 travel. Your next update is in 15 minutes.
LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. This is London's biggest conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Morning, 5 minutes after 7 on Wednesday, April the 11th. Coming up later in this hour, we'll be speaking to someone who heard and give us a good idea of those tragic events that took place in Woolwich. Police trying to detain or get hold of that woman who subsequently fell from the building. Unfortunately, fatal fall there. We'll also be looking at the stories at the front page of one of the newspapers this morning. Europe's sovereign debt crisis exploding back into life, with markets across the continent rocked by a wave of panic selling amid renewed fears about the impact of savage austerity measures in Spain, and also, here we go, another one of the pigs in Italy as well. Full coverage of that to come later in this hour. Later in the programme, you know, it is a terrible mess at the UK border agency. They're even putting out conflicting figures this morning, but it would appear that the asylum backlog tops 500,000, and it would take more than 4 years if they solely dedicated themselves just to that. 4 years to clear. This, of course, as despite being told by Europe that we can successfully now deport Abu Hamza, it would appear that it's still going to take some months to put him on the jet. I'll be asking you later in the show why. And what of the hundreds of pounds a week in benefits his family continue to enjoy? Of course, they're not guilty of anything, but be happy to pay that money. And on the subject of money, nice to get a little bit of help from your friends, isn't it? Now that England is suffering with a water crisis and that hosepipe ban, we've applied to some Welsh authorities to have some of their money, have some of their water, and guess what? They'll only give us the water if we pay them for it. We'll be looking at that in full detail as well. But back to a story that last year galvanised you, this city, and indeed this radio station, LBC 97.3. It was the summer riots, and probably the image that is, and I choose this word deliberately, burnt into most of our minds is the terrible scenes from the Reeves furniture store in Croydon. And indeed, as much as those images went global, went around the world, safety from an upstairs apartment into the arms of, I think it was firefighters, it might have been police officers. Again, it was a fairly moody shot, and that went round the world. Well, the man responsible for that, Gordon Thompson, 33-year-old, who had denied burning down the 150-year-old furniture store, subsequently pleaded guilty and will be sentenced today. In a moment, we'll speak with a lawyer and ask what typically the tariff might be. But to give us some context, let's speak with Graham Reeves, who's owner of Reeves Furniture Store in Croydon. Of course, we've spoken with him on a number of occasions since those riots. He joins me now. Mr. Reeves, how are you feeling this morning?
Slightly apprehensive, Nick, and good morning to everybody out there.
Morning, sir.
I mean, obviously those pictures of the building, that was fire, went everywhere. But, you know, we are still open. There, and that's the only thing that's very still going down there.
And we'll give that a big mention in a moment or two as we come to the end of our conversation. Just to pick you up on a word, apprehensive. Just why choose that word? In what way apprehensive?
Well, you know, personally, I wasn't involved. Devil was the wrong word. I wanted to get it wrong. Yeah. Because it's just malicious damage. It's just been a horrendous time for everybody. Anybody that around the Tottenham, Croydon, it just has been nice for everybody. And there was no benefit to anybody for this crime. I can't see the point of it at all.
Give me a whole lot destroyed. Have we ever got now an accurate figure for the amount of damage caused by the fire at what was your store?
Not a full one, because there's two landowners involved in the business. There's our business, and it's into millions.
It's into millions, is it? You said, Mr. Reeves?
It's into millions.
It's into millions. And of course, we know that prior to setting light to your store, he was heard to say, "Who's got a lighter? Let's torch the place." Subsequently, he boasted to colleagues, "It was me, I did that, I burned Reeves Furniture." How many years do you want him to serve?
You just fathom how you can believe that people do such a thing. But they did, and then you've got to move on from it. But the police and general people, some people just live a life of crime, and I don't think they want to be rehabilitated. They just want to live a life of crime. And unfortunately, maybe this man is one of them. And I don't know how the police, they might do lots of things wrong, the police, over the time, but when you have people arrested, not this gentleman, some people, maybe 100 times let out, I think probably everybody listening to this is a victim of crime at some point. And that's a sad reflection on the society we live in.
In a moment, I'll ask you to remind my listeners that they can all get down to that part of Croydon and I'm sure pick up some great items. Would you ever want to meet this man?
No. I will go up to the Old Bailey today. When I finish, I will go to the Old Bailey and I'll sit quietly out of the way, hopefully. And then I could go back to the store this afternoon.
Why will you go to the Old Bailey today, Mr. Reeves?
Well, I think I want to see justice done. And often in this world you don't see justice done, and I'm sure whatever the verdict is, I will agree with it, because that's the law of the land. You've got to agree with the law of the land.
Yeah, we're trying to get an idea of how many. I mean, I'm just going to throw a number at you based a little bit on some previous sentencing and the tariff. Say it was somewhere in the region of 9-10 years. How would you feel?
Well, I'd like them all served. I think they're, you know, I'm not trying to get away from something. There was a lady the other day, and after 4 years, I think they were doing, you know, dreadful things to her daughter. And I had kids in the case. And that doesn't seem a long time. But, you know, if it's 9 years or served 9 years, but that's so be it. It's not my decision to say how long it takes, but how long people serve, that's the justice.
Mr. Reeves, the store is open for business for all my listeners.
Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Not at all. I hope you get from your trip to the Bailey what you need to get some kind of succour. Thank you for that. Graham Reeves is one of the owners of Reeves Furniture Store in Croydon. 12 minutes after 7. Listening to that is Julian Young, criminal lawyer, senior partner at the London firm Julian Young and Company. Often helps us in matters such as these. Julian, it is, of course, the proverbial piece of string, but what do you think we might be looking at? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Well, it's a person with intent to endanger life or being reckless as to whether life be endangered. Maximum sentence is life imprisonment. don't think the judge will impose that. He's going to really hit this defendant very hard indeed. In my opinion,